For some people, a new American dream is emerging to no longer live in America. Americans are leaving in record numbers, replanting themselves and their families in countries they find more affordable and safe.
I think maturing is realizing that the end goal is actually to get out of the US. Make your money in the US and then get out, bro. Like this place is just...
America used to be the promised land, an immigrant paradise built around the American dream that people all over the world shared. But in 2026, everything has been turned upside down. More and more people are leaving America calling out that they are going in search of freedom. Grandparents, parents, even younger generations are packing their bags and leaving. They feel like something is coming for America. Underneath it all, everything seems to be moving toward the edge. So what happened? What turned America from a land of immigrants into a country of people leaving? Join me as we listen to the reasons, and in many ways the cries for help from people who chose to leave America. You will see the American dream slowly fading away. Not necessarily because they hate America, but because life has become so difficult that they feel forced to escape. Watch until the end and answer one question for yourself. If it were you, would you leave to find somewhere easier to live or stay and try to save America? The cost of living has become too expensive. You may find this hard to believe, but the first and most painful reason more and more Americans are thinking about leaving is not some huge dramatic issue. It is not because they suddenly fell in love with another country. Not everyone wants to quit their job and live like a tourist. The reason is much simpler. A normal life in America is becoming too expensive for ordinary people.
It's crazy how cheap it is to live abroad than it is living in America. You know, I got all my groceries for around 2 weeks and I paid $30. How crazy is it that when you leave America, you realize, bro, the food is more healthier. It's so damn cheap. Imagine having your full groceries for over 2 weeks for $30. How much do you spend on groceries right now for 2 weeks? $100, $200? Bro, I'm so happy I'm in America. I'm not gonna lie. It is so damn cheap.
Look at this guy. He goes overseas, starts looking at prices, and almost has to rethink all the math he has gotten used to in America. With the same amount of money, he can get significantly more somewhere else. This is not just about saying, wow, this country is really cheap. What caught my attention is the moment someone starts asking, so where's my money actually going in America? You probably do not even need to leave the country to understand that feeling. You walk into a grocery store with $100, put some gas in the car, stop by the pharmacy, then look at your account and wonder what you even bought. No fancy restaurant, no designer clothes, no vacation. Just the things you need to make it through another week. If you think this is just a few people traveling overseas and coming home complaining about prices fine, then take a look at CBS.
The average American on Social Security receives $2,071 each month, but they spend on average $1,684 on housing, $572 on food, and $367 on healthcare monthly. That's a total of $2,623.
You heard it. A sad reality is spreading across America. With the cost of maintaining a normal life getting so high, retirement is starting to feel impossible. 1 in 5 Americans age 65 and older is working or looking for work, and for many of them the reason is simple: they need the money. This is the part I have the hardest time accepting. We are used to hearing that young people need to hustle, work extra hours, and push harder. But if someone close to 70 still has to figure out whether they can afford food, healthcare, and bills, if they stop working, then exactly when is life finally allowed to get easier? And it happens at every stage of life. In your 20s, you are afraid to move out on your own. In your 30s, you put off buying a home or having children. In your 50s, you start worrying that your retirement savings will not be enough. Close to 70, you are still working. The cost of living does not just take your money. It keeps pushing the biggest plans in your life further and further back year after year. For years, the usual advice has been simple: if you do not have enough money, earn more, learn more, work more, pick up another job. But then you meet this woman.
Hey! So I work in the operating room, and I just worked a 12-hour shift in the operating room, and I cannot afford my rent. I can't afford my rent. I can't afford gas. I can't afford groceries. I can't afford any of my endless other bills.
She had just finished a 12-hour shift in a hospital operating room. To me, that is already more than enough for one day. But she did not go home to sleep. It was already past midnight. and she still turned on DoorDash and went back out to make more money. So what are we supposed to tell her to do now? There are only 24 hours in a day. That is when leaving starts to sound a lot less extreme. People stop asking how much more do I need to make. They start asking, if I'm already working this hard and still struggling, why not try living somewhere that gives me a little more breathing room? And this is only rent bills and work. You can cancel Netflix, stop eating out, put off buying a car, but there is one thing you still have to buy this week and next week: food. And if you think the only problem with food in America is the price, the next part is even more disturbing. Americans are losing trust in the food they eat every day.
Why am I seeing $25, $30 burgers? I don't care what the restaurant looks like. I don't care what the atmosphere is. I don't care what city you're in. $20 needs to be the maximum for a typical restaurant.
You can cancel Netflix. You can skip this year's vacation. You can put off buying a car for a few more years. But there is one expense you can barely cut out of your life. Tomorrow morning, you still have to eat. People tell you to buy the store brand. Fine, you did that. Watch for sales. Done. Stop eating out. Already did that too. Meat is expensive, so you buy less meat. Fruit is expensive, so you wait for a sale. And somehow the bill is still high and the advice is still the same: spend smarter. How much smarter are you supposed to get skip breakfast too? And remember the World Cup, when a lot of Europeans came to America, tried the food, walked into these massive stores, and were impressed by all the variety. I get it. If you are in America for a few days, looking at huge portions, endless grocery aisles, and all kinds of food to try, but this place can be really impressive. But try raising a family here for 20 years. One side sees all the choices. The people who live here see the total at the bottom of the receipt. But high prices are still not the part that worries me most. At least with high prices, you know what the problem is. And what is more disturbing is when people hold up the food they just bought and start asking, is this normal?
Nothing
What
beats a
is
Jet
that?
holiday. And right now,
Texture is so weird. Like, you gotta bend it.
Potato last night, and it wasn't hollow.
disgusting.
Look at this woman, for example. She is just breaking apart a piece of the watermelon, something that should not be worth talking about at all. But when it splits open, the texture inside makes even her stop and take a closer look. Is it fake watermelon? I do not know. But I do think it is time we started asking, what exactly are they selling us? Then you look at canned and packaged foods. Turn them around, and there is a whole ingredient list that an ordinary person may barely know how to read. Familiar products get smaller, and sometimes the taste or texture changes too. Then there are recalls, contamination warnings, and food safety problems. What stands out is that after going overseas, some Americans say the food feels fresher and simpler. Some say they lose weight. Some say their digestion improves. Others put it very simply, they feel healthier, especially once you are not in your 20s anymore. At some point, blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar, and medication then become very real issues. Then you are not just looking at the price on the shelf anymore. You start looking at what you are putting into your body. From there, the frustration starts shifting. People stop blaming just the store or one food company. They start asking about inspections, recalls, manufacturers, and the agencies that are supposed to protect consumers. And that is when the story stops being just about food. It becomes a story about trust in the entire system. When the whole system makes Americans feel like they cannot breathe.
Today I watched 5 of my coworkers get laid off from a job that they've been working for 20 plus years. Each and every one of them have 20 plus years experience. And the company just let them go just like that. Now these are hard-working, dedicated, loyal employees. So it just goes to show, man, you can do everything right and stuff.
And from food, the question starts getting bigger. If one store frustrates you, you switch stores. If one job is terrible, you look for another one. But what happens when everywhere you look, something else is putting pressure on you? Take work. For years, Americans were taught a pretty simple formula. Get an education, work hard, build experience, and life will gradually become more stable. But more and more people no longer feel like that formula is reliable. A company can lay people off. A factory can shut down. A job that once felt secure can disappear. And you do not even have to be a bad employee.
People ask me this all the time. Are you going back to America? Nope. And I want to explain why, because it's not what most people expect. When I was in San Diego, I was depressed. I didn't even realize how depressed I was until I left. I was working constantly just staring at 4 walls, walking to my desk every morning and not leaving until 7 at night. $9,000 a month, all in just to do that.
Losing a job in America also rarely means losing only one paycheck. For many families, the job is tied to health insurance. So losing that job can immediately bring up another question. What happens if I need a doctor next week? Then there is technology. This part sounds small, but the more you think about it, the more uncomfortable it gets. Want a lower price? Download the app. Want to use the service? Create an account. The app wants your location. Another app wants access to your camera, microphone, or contacts. We have gotten so used to tapping accept that sometimes we do not even read what we just agreed to. You pay for the product. And sometimes it feels like you are also paying with your own data. Then add housing insurance, healthcare, safety, schools, and your children's future. At some point, people stop dealing with each issue separately, and they start looking at the whole picture.
Hey there, friends. My name is Naomi. I am 48. I'm a registered nurse. I live in St. Pete, Florida, and I am leaving the United States to move to Thailand this September. My 22-year-old son, Aiden, and my mom will possibly be coming with me as well.
Listen to this woman. She is 48, a nurse in St. Petersburg, Florida, and she decided to move to Thailand. What stands out is that she says there was no single moment that made her decide to leave. It built up slowly. She worried about how she would ever afford college for her 3 children. She said she worried about gun violence every day, and what weighed on her most was the thought that the America her children would grow up in would be very different from the America she once knew. This is when I finally understood why leaving America is no longer just about hunting for cheaper rent. One problem can be fixed. 2 problems can still be tolerated, but when too many things show up at once, the question changes too. It is no longer how much harder do I have to try to live well in America. It becomes, does a better life for my family really have to be in America? When the American dream starts running in reverse.
I think maturing is realizing that the end goal is actually to get out of the U.S. Make your money in the U.S. and then get out, bro. Like, this place is just horrible, bro. Like, the food is poisonous. Like, bro, everything's trying to kill you.
Try telling an immigrant family a few decades ago that one day their children might want to leave America to find a better life. I think a lot of them would have had a hard time believing it, because they gave up so much just to get here. For so many families, the American dream was never about becoming a millionaire. It was much simpler than that. Parents worked 2 jobs so their children could go to school. They rented for years, hoping that one day their kids could buy a home. They moved to a new country, spoke a new language, and started over from the almost zero because they hoped their children would not have to start from zipper the way they did. That was the most important promise of all the children should have a better life than their parents. I have a friend of Mexican background. Her parents left almost their entire old life behind to come to America. They did not come because they wanted to start over. Nobody enjoys doing that. They came because they believed their children would have more opportunities in America. And they did it. Their children got an education and built careers and created stable lives. At this point, that sounds exactly like the American dream, right? But this is the part of her story I cannot forget. When she became a mother herself, she wanted to take her own children back to Mexico. And the reason was the exact same reason her parents had once brought her to America. She wanted her children to have a better life. When I heard that, I really had to think about it. Her parents looked at America and thought that is where our child will have a future. Now she has grown up in America, has a job, and has the opportunities her parents once wanted for her. But when she thinks about her own children, she looks somewhere else. What changed in just one generation? Listen to what some Americans say they want now. Time off without worrying about bills. Enough money left after paying rent. Dinner with their children. A night of sleep without thinking about tomorrow's job. One person in the stories we have seen even said she went to school, earned multiple degrees, owned a home, had a car, got married, and did almost everything society told her she was supposed to do. But in the end, all she really wanted was peace, rest, and financial stability. There is nothing luxurious about any of that. And yet for some people, getting even those basic things has become so difficult that they now feel like a dream. Suppose you make $120,000 a year, but you get home late every night, cannot afford to take 1 week off, and one big bill can throw your whole month into chaos. Meanwhile, someone else makes less somewhere else, but can afford housing, has time for their children, and still has money left at the end of the month. Maybe Americans still want the same things they have always wanted: a home, a family, safety, enough money, and enough time. There's only one difference. More and more people are starting to believe they do not necessarily have to stay in America to get those things, and once that thought appears, the whole world suddenly becomes an option. America, may be a great place to make money, but is it really the best place to live?
Things I've learned since I've left America and moved abroad to a different country. Number one, we were lied to in America. America is not nearly as great as we've been told that it is. Number two, we are actually so behind other countries and we don't even realize it because we are constantly fed the lie that we are the best. Number three, we've also been lied to about how scary other...
And once you accept that America is not the only option, a pretty uncomfortable question comes up. We always hear America is the greatest country in the world. Fine. But greatest at what? Greatest place to start a business? Maybe. Greatest place to build a career? For a lot of people, yes. But the greatest place to raise kids, enjoy your 60s, spend time with family, or simply get through a day without constantly racing the clock? Those are completely different questions. I think this is where we tend to mix everything together. A country can give you great opportunities to make money and still not be the best place for every stage of your life. What is so hard to understand about that, you can spend your 20s and 30s working building skills and saving money, but by your 50s, what you want may no longer be a higher job title. You may want slower mornings. You want to see your friends. You want to walk to a coffee shop. You want to eat dinner without checking work emails at the same time. And when people look outside America, what surprises many of them is not necessarily that they find some kind of paradise. No place is like that. What they realize is much simpler. There is more than one way to live a life. You do not necessarily need a car for everything. Your house does not have to be huge for you to call yourself successful. Making more money does not mean you have to immediately raise your lifestyle to match. Work does not have to be the number one priority during every stage of your life. Just realizing those things is enough to challenge an old belief. It is the same everywhere. And then an even more controversial question comes up. If someone studies in America, works in America, but builds a career in America, saves some money, and then decides to use what they earn to live in another country, what is wrong with that? I know some people will immediately say, America gave you the opportunity, and now that you have made enough money, you are leaving. But hold on, we are always saying people should make the best decisions for themselves and their families. So why should that right to choose suddenly stop at the American border, moving from California to Texas to find a life that fits you better is considered normal? But move from Florida to Mexico and suddenly some people call it running away. Why? There's another contradiction too. Companies are constantly deciding where it makes the most sense to put offices, factories, or business operations. If they find somewhere better for their goals, we call that strategy. But when a family looks at a map and says, this place fits our life better, why is that treated like failure? And I do not understand why the address on your electric bill should become some kind of test of patriotism. You can absolutely love America, be grateful for the opportunities you were given, still have family and friends. You still want America to get better and at the same time decide that you want to spend a few years or the rest of your life somewhere else. Those things do not have to contradict each other. If we really value freedom, then should not. The right to say, this way of life does not work for me anymore, and I want to try something different and be part of freedom too. But this is where another problem comes up, and I think it is even more uncomfortable. It sounds easy if you do not like it, leave. But who can actually leave? You need money, you need a passport, you may need a visa, you need a job you can take with you, or enough savings. What if you are taking care of aging parents? What if you are in debt? What if your kids are in school? What if every month you barely make it to payday? The people who want to leave America. The most may be the ones who cannot leave. But there is something that gets overlooked very easily when we talk about leaving America. Saying if you do not like it, leave sounds simple. It is simple when you have savings, a remote job, and a passport already sitting in a drawer. But what if you only have a few $100s left at the end of the month? To leave, you need more than courage. You need money for the ticket, money for a housing deposit, money for those first few weeks or months before things become stable. You may need a visa. You need some source of income that keeps coming in after you leave America. And most importantly, you need a safety cushion in case the plan does not turn out as beautifully as you imagined. So there is a pretty bitter contradiction here. To escape a life that is too expensive, you first need enough money to escape it. Someone living paycheck to paycheck gets told, go to Mexico. Thailand is cheap. Try living in Asia. With what money? If they already had enough money to stop working for a few months, buy tickets for the whole family, and start over in another country, they probably would not be this stuck in the first place. But sometimes money is not even the strongest thing keeping people here. Say you are 58 and your mother is 82. She needs someone to take her to the doctor. You're the closest person to her. If you leave, who takes care of her? Or maybe you are divorced and sharing custody. You cannot just buy a ticket and take your child to another country. Or your child is in high school, your partner does not want to go. Your brothers and sisters are all here, your grandchildren are here. 30 years of your life have put down roots in one place. And this is where the story gets a lot sadder. Someone with a laptop, a job they can do from anywhere, and $50,000 in the bank can try living overseas for 6 months. If it does not work out, they buy a ticket home. But what about a single mother, someone in debt, someone taking care of aging parents, someone whose job only exists if they physically show up? They may want to leave more than anyone else, but they are the people who have the hardest time leaving. That is why I do not like it when people look at someone who is still in America and say, if it is really that bad, why do you not just leave? Maybe they really want to. Maybe every night they watch videos of a small apartment near the beach in Mexico. Maybe a 60-year-old woman watches other people retire overseas and wonders whether she could do it too. Maybe a father has opened the airline ticket page a few times and then closed it because he still has a mortgage, kids, and parents here. But to be fair, we also have to say this. We are looking across the border so much that sometimes we act like every problem disappears the moment we get there. It does not. Housing is difficult in a lot of places. Prices are rising in many countries. Local wages are not American wages. And a place that looks incredibly cheap when you bring American dollars with you may not feel cheap at all to someone who has to earn a living there. Leaving America does not mean escaping every problem. Say you actually do it. You get on a plane and leave America and find a place you like. Great. But this is also where I think we need to stay realistic, because it is very easy to turn the rest of the world into a postcard. The plane lands. Those first exciting days eventually pass. In the end, what is left is still ordinary life. Housing problems do not exist only in America. Rising prices do not exist only in America. Jobs, taxes, paperwork, politics, and inequality, all those things exist elsewhere too, just in different forms. Leaving America may help you leave some problems behind, but it does not let you escape the fact that life always comes with difficult things. And the same is true with something being cheap. An apartment that costs $800 sounds incredibly attractive if you earn money in American dollars. But if you are living on local wages, $800 can be a completely different story. Do not confuse the advantage of the currency you bring with a place being cheap for everyone. Then there are the things that never show up in travel videos. Language, paperwork, laws you are not used to, schools for your kids, being far from friends, being far from your parents, and the feeling that you are always a foreigner in the place where you live. Maybe the right question is not, which country is better? Maybe it is, which problems am I willing to accept in exchange for the life I want? Leave or stay and save America.
I'm leaving the United States and moving abroad to another country, and I get a lot of people telling me that I'm a coward, or I should stay here and fight for what's right in America. And I think this take is so, well, A, terminally online, and B, just stupid, because it is not my responsibility alone, okay?
And this is where I do not think there is one right answer for everyone. Some people will say, I only get one life. I am not going to spend another 10 or 20 years waiting for things to get better. If they have the chance to take their family somewhere that fits them better, they will go. I understand that choice, but someone else may say no. This is my home. My family is here. I grew up here. If there is a problem, I want to stay and do my part to fix it. I understand that choice too. What I do not like is the way we turn these two groups into enemies. People who leave get called quitters. People who stay get called naive and unwilling to face reality. Life is not that simple. And I keep wondering, what do we owe our country and what do we owe our family? I do not think anyone can answer that for you. But there is one thing I believe: if you stay, do not stay only because you are afraid of change. And if you leave, do not leave only because of a few beautiful videos online. Both choices come with a cost. At least know what you are giving up and what you are getting in return. Now forget about visas, money, and family responsibilities for a moment. Say you wake up tomorrow with enough money, your passport is ready, your job can go with you, and nothing is holding you back. Would you leave America? If the answer is yes, I think the more important question is not whether you would go to Mexico, Thailand, or Europe. It is what happened that made you stop wanting to stay. Because the most important thing is not just the people who packed their bags and got on a plane. It is also the people who still go to work every morning, still pay the mortgage, still take their kids to school, still live a very American life, but have already started imagining a future somewhere else. A country does not only have a problem when people start leaving. It already has a problem when people are no longer sure they want to stay. I have never seen the American dream feel this ironic. America used to be the dream, the destination, and the ambition of millions of people around the world. People learned English, saved money, left their home countries, and started over from zero just for the chance to come here. And now more and more people are looking beyond the border and asking themselves, should I leave? But the real question is, do they hate America so much that they want to leave it behind? Or have too many problems piled up at the same time to the point where they no longer feel that life here is worth enduring the way they once did? What does this reversal make you think about? If you truly had a choice tomorrow, would you keep living in America or start over somewhere else? And if you had to make that decision for your children, would your answer change? Share your thoughts. I am not going to give you the answer. Let the debate be open. Because this channel was not created to speak for everyone. It was created because we value the voice of every person actually living through this.